Good morning, students. So today we shall going to discuss antimalarial drugs, which is very important for your theory as well as Viva examination. And not only that, it will be helpful for your daily practice also, because it is still now a very common disease and proper treatment is essential to save the lives of millions of people. So I think you have been taught about malaria life cycle and different classes of organisms of which causes malaria in microbiology class. So causative agents are 4 species of Plasmodium: Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium ovale, and Plasmodium malariae. And now this is life cycle of Plasmodium. It is important to know because some drugs act in the different parts of the life cycle of a Plasmodium. So malaria is transmitted by the bite of the infected female Anopheles mosquitoes. So you all know that. And during feeding, mosquitoes inject sporozoids in us, which circulate in the liver and rapidly infect the hepatocytes, and they cause the asymptomatic liver infection that is called hepatic phase. So female Anopheles injects us sporozoids and they come to the liver and they infect other hepatocytes, and from that hepatocytes there is release of the merozoids. So merozoids released from the liver rapidly infect erythrocytes RBC and begin the asexual erythrocytic stage of the infection, and this is responsible for the human disease. So sporozoids go to the liver and merozoids are released from there, and merozoids infect RBCs, and infected RBC also releases merozoids to attack further RBC, and this is called asexual erythrocytic stage of the infection, and this is responsible for the human disease. That means release of merozoids are responsible for development of the fever with chill and rigor, and multiple rounds of erythrocytic development are there, and there is production of the multiple merozoids that invade additional erythrocytes. This leads to large number of circulating parasites and clinical illness. So this is the malaria life cycle in short. So there is release of the sporozoids when mosquito bites us, and they come to the extraerythrocytic cycle, that is the hepatic cycle. So before the RBC phase, we call it hepatic phase or extraerythrocytic phase, and after that there is release of merozoids from the liver, and some of the merozoids infect RBC, but some of the merozoids remain in the liver as hypnozoids, mostly for the Plasmodium vivax and ovale, but not for the falciparum. And these merozoids enter into the erythrocytic cycle, also called seasons, and then these merozoids are converted into gametocytes, and they are present in the circulation. Bite of mosquito comes, these gametocytes are transferred from the human to the next mosquito, and inside this mosquito there is formation of the zygote from the gametocytes and formation of the oocysts, and then converted into sporozoids, and thus the cycle continues. The sporozoids are stored in the mosquito salivary gland. So this mosquito, when bites another person, will inject sporozoids in the human being, and from sporozoids to merozoids and gametocytes, this cycle continues. But some of the sporozoids remain as hypnozoids, which is responsible for the relapse. So release of the merozoids subsequent to rupture of the erythrocytes causes the clinical attack of malaria, and some erythrocyte parasites also develop sexual gametocytes, which are infectious to mosquito, allowing completion of the life cycle. And vivax and ovale parasites also form dormant liver hypnozoids, which are not killed by the most of the drugs, allowing subsequent relapse. So relapse means patient is febrile, but after a few days there is development of the clinical symptoms again, and this is the subsequent relapse of illness after initial elimination of the erythrocytic infection. So to achieve complete cure, we have to kill merozoids as well as hypnozoids, merozoids from the RBC as well as hypnozoids in the liver, to prevent relapse. Otherwise, patient will have recurrent symptoms. So this is the site of action of the different drugs. We shall discuss later. So what is relapse versus recrudescence? It is a very commonly misunderstood term. So recrudescence is when symptoms return after a symptom-free period, and it is mainly due to inappropriate or ineffective clearance of the parasite. So this parasite survives in the blood as a result of inadequate or ineffective treatment, and relapse is what is relapse? Relapse is when symptoms reappear after parasites have been eliminated from the blood but persist as dormant hypnozoites in liver cells. So, in recrudescence, we have not achieved the cure because some of the merozoites still present in the blood, and this is due to result of inadequate or ineffective treatment. But relapse means we have cleared the erythrocytic merozoites, but some of the parasites remain in the liver and they have been eliminated from the blood but persist as dormant hypnozoites in the liver cell. So relapse is common in the Plasmodium oval and vivax infection, and recrudescence is common in Plasmodium falciparum infection. So remember this. And for clearing of the relapse, we have to kill the liver hypnozoites. But as Plasmodium falciparum have no hypnozoites, we have to ensure killing of the Plasmodium by multiple drugs. So this is the classification of drugs. You may not remember these chemical names, but remember most commonly used drugs. Chloroquine, you know all. Chloroquine, amidoacid, quine, mefloquine, quinine, that is obtained from the cinchona bark, quinine and quinidine. Biguanides is proguanil. Pyrimethamine, that is a diaminopyrimidine. Primaquine and tafenoquine. Sulfonamides and sulfone, sulfadoxine. Antibiotics is tetracycline, doxycycline, clindamycin. So some of the antibiotics of the tetracyclines and doxycycline and clindamycin can be used as parasitocidal here. So Plasmodium is killed by this tetracycline, doxycycline, clindamycin, mostly useful for the Plasmodium falciparum malaria, where I have mentioned that single drug treatment is often not successful because there is development of the recrudescence. So to prevent recrudescence, we have to kill multiple cidal drugs, and one of them is antibiotics, tetracycline, doxycycline, or clindamycin. Also, you can use sulfadoxine, pyrimethamine. So these are also group of antibiotics which are used in the treatment of the malaria. So remember few of the names: chloroquine, mefloquine, quinine, proguanil, tetracycline, clindamycin. But number 9 is very important group of drug useful. Actually, it is the drug of choice for the falciparum malaria. That is the artesunate, artemether, arteether. They are called sesquiterpene lactose. So artesunate, artemether, and arteether. They are also called artemisinin derivatives because these are derived from the Artemisia annua. That is the scientific name of the plant from which they are derived. Artesunate, artemether, or arteether. Also, you have lumefantrine, halofantrine, and atrovacone. So there are multiple group of drugs, but mostly commonly we use chloroquine, quinine, artemisinin group of drug, artesunate, artemether, arteether, lumefantrine, mefloquine, and proguanil, primaquine. Tissues are also antibiotics group of drug, tetracycline, clindamycin, and doxycycline. Now, these are the classification as per the chemical structure, but we have to remember classification according to the stage of the falciparum, stage of the Plasmodium on which the drugs act. So accordingly, these have been classified into tissue zoonotocytes. They eliminate the pre-erythrocytic or extraerythrocytic stage in the liver. That means they mainly kill the hepatic phase. Also, there is erythrocytic zoonotocytes act on the erythrocytic parasites. Also, we have gametocytocidal drugs. That means those kill the gametocytes in the blood and prevent transmission of mosquitoes from infected human to other mosquito. So we have tissue zoonotocytes, we have erythrocytic zoonotocytes, and we have gametocytes. So what is the tissue zoonotocyte? There is primaquine. So this is the drug which is useful for the treatment of the relapse of the Plasmodium vivax infection, because primaquine acts on the hypnozoites to kill them and prevent the development of the relapse. So what is the dose of the primaquine for the prevention of the relapse in the vivax malaria? That is 50 mg, not per kg, sorry, 15 mg per day for 2 weeks for killing the hypnozoites. Also, we have proguanil, doxycycline, that can act as the tissue zoonotocytes. Next, gametocytes. So primaquine has the unique property to act as gametocide also, and gametocytocidal drug is primaquine. It is useful for the prevention of the sexual gametocytal phase to human, from the human to the mosquito. So gametocytes are killed by this primaquine, and for that effect, dose is different. 45 mg single dose given on the second day immediately after clinical cure, and this cuts down transmission to mosquito. So primaquine gametocidal activity, this is useful for the treatment of the virus as well as falciparum malaria. That's why, though falciparum has no hypnozoitic phase, that's why this 50 milligram daily for 14 days, that phase is not required, but 45 milligram single dose is required to kill the gametocytes of the falciparum malaria too, and falciparum and virus malaria both shows the effect. Both on both the organisms, primaquine shows this effect. So primaquine is a hypnozoitocidal as well as gametocidocidal. Hypnozoitocidal for the vivax, gametocidocidal for the vivax as well as falciparum. Clinical cure, it is achieved when we can kill the erythrocytic pneumocytes. So erythrocytic pneumocyte is used to terminate the episodes of the malaria fever, and the drugs can be classified as high efficacy or low efficacy. High efficacy drugs, artemisinin group of drugs, chloroquine, amidoaquine, quinine, mefloquine, halofantrine, lumefantrine, atovaquone. So artemisinin, chloroquine, quinine, mefloquine, you remember at least 4 of them. And low efficacy drugs are not used alone. We have to use it in combination with high efficacy drugs. Their example is fluoroquinolone, pyrimethamine, sulfonamides, tetracycline, clindamycin. So what is that radical cure means? Radical cure means when we have to when we have achieved the clinical cure as well as radical cure. That means clinical cure is done by the killing the erythrocytic phase, and radical cure can be achieved by killing the hypnozoites. So it eliminates both hepatic as well as erythrocytic stage, and mostly it implies on the virus and novel plasmodium, because on the falciparum and plasmodium malariae this hypnozoitic phase is absent. So we have to combine 2 drugs. One is erythrocytic zoonocyte and one is tissue zoonocyte. So commonest we can combine is chloroquine plus primaquine. So chloroquine will kill the erythrocytic phase and primaquine will kill the extraerythrocytic hepatic phase. So in chloroquine resistant cases, then we can use this combination quinine plus doxycycline clindamycin plus primaquine. So primaquine is essential for all the malaria, plasmodium, vivax as well as plasmodium falciparum. For vivax, it is both acts as a hypnozoitocidal plus gametocidocidal, whereas for falciparum it acts only as a gametocidocidal. But we have to combine it unless patient is pregnant or patient is having G6PD deficiency. So quinine plus doxycycline clindamycin plus primaquine can be given if there is chloroquine resistance in that area, and artemisinin based combination therapy is also can be given in vivax malaria combined with primaquine. Causal prophylaxis. So sometimes prophylaxis is needed when the person visits a malaria endemic area, and actually but the person is actually belongs to the area where malaria is not so much prevalent, but if he or she wishes to visit malaria endemic area, then prophylaxis should be taken. And pre-erythrocytic phase, which is the cause of malarial infection and clinical attack, is the target of this purpose. Primaquine is also can be used for causal prophylaxis in all stages of malaria. Suppressive prophylaxis. So zoonocytes which suppress the erythrocytic phase and thus attacks of malaria fever can be used as prophylactic. Clinical disease does not appear. So suppressive prophylaxis means mostly implies for the travelers, where there is high chance of developing malaria, but if we can continue some drugs during the travel, then malaria infection, clinical disease may not appear. Chloroquine is previously was used for the prophylaxis, but now it is not used because of widespread resistance of chloroquine in our country. That's why in India, mostly travelers are advised to continue mefloquine or doxycycline. So what is the dose of mefloquine? Mefloquine can prevent both vivax as well as falciparum malaria as prophylactic purpose, and mefloquine dose is 250 mg weekly. When to start? It should be started 2 weeks before journey, and it should be taken throughout the journey and continued until 4 weeks after return from the endemic area of the chloroquine-resistant plasmodium falciparum. Suppose a person is willing to visit India on first week of 1st October, suppose, and then he have to start the mefloquine 2 weeks prior. That means on the 17th or 18th of the September, and suppose he wishes to travel in India for up to 15th October, then he or she needs to take the mefloquine up to 4 weeks after that. That means until till the second week of the November, we should continue this mefloquine weekly to 50 mg dose. And another alternative is doxycycline, but this needs to be given daily, 100 milligram daily, and starting 2 days before travel and taken till 4 weeks after return from the endemic area of the chloroquine resistant Plasmodium falciparum. But it is contraindicated in pregnancy and children below 8 years of age. So doxycycline chloroquine can be used as suppressive prophylaxis for the travelers, and also chloroquine can be used in some country, not in India, but where chloroquine resistance is not so much prevalent, we can use chloroquine as a suppressive prophylaxis also. For that, dose is 300 milligram weekly chloroquine, and should be started 2 weeks before journey and to be continued 4 weeks after return. So this is the drugs which act on the different phases of the mosquito and as well as human. So in human, tissue scintigratocytes are proguanil, pyrimethamine, primacoin, tetracycline, and they kill the extracytic physiogony, and the red blood cell physiogony, that is 40. This phase runs for 48 hours in Plasmodium falciparum, and 72 hours in Plasmodium malariae, and clinical malaria is killed by is cured by this drug which act on this phase, red cell physiogony. That means the drugs are chloroquine, mefloquine, artesunate, halofenadine, tetracycline, etc. And after that phase, they convert it into gametocytes, and gametocyte is killed by the primacoin. And after that, there is development of the sporozoites again in the mosquito, and sporozoidocidal activities can be is seen in the primacoin, proguanil, and pyrimethamine. So what is the goal of the treatment? We have to kill the prevent and treat the clinical attack of malaria. We have to completely eradicate the parasite from the patient's body, as well as to reduce the human reservoir of the infection, cut down the transmission of the mosquito. So we need clinical cure of the fever. We need to reduce the transmission of the mosquito gametocyte from a Plasmodium gametocyte from the infected person to the another mosquito, and we have to ensure killing of the hypnozoites to prevent the relapse, so that we can eradicate the infection. Next, we have to discuss one of the commonly used drug one by one. Chloroquine. It is a rapidly acting exocytic scintigratocyte against all species of Plasmodium, but resistance has been widespread against the Plasmodium falciparum. So for the falciparum malaria, it is not the drug of choice, but for the Vivax and other group of drugs, we have to use the chloroquine first. It controls most clinical attacks in 1 to 2 days, with disappearance of the parasites from the peripheral blood in 1 to 3 days. And it has no effect on the pre-exocytic or extraexocytic phase. That means it has no effect on the hypnozoites. That's why chloroquine is not effective alone in eradicating the infection, but chloroquine should be given to kill the exocytic phase mainly, to achieve the clinical cure from the fever. And it controls the most clinical attacks in 1 to 2 days, with disappearance of the parasites from the peripheral blood in 1 to 3 days. So as they do not have any effect on the hypnozoites, they do not prevent relapse in Vivax malaria. It is used only for the clinical cure. So how chloroquine acts? So we know that Plasmodium utilizes heme to convert into hemozoin for their survival. So chloroquine is a basic drug, and they are actively concentrated by the sensitive intraexocytic plasmodia by accumulating into the acidic vesicles of the parasite. So Plasmodium contains acidic vesicles, and chloroquine, being a basic drug, are better stored there, because they are and this is the acidic media, acidic vesicle, and basic drugs are non-ionized, so they are better stored there. And after that, the weakly basic in nature raises the vesicular pH and thus interferes with the degradation of the hemoglobin by the parasitic lysosomes. So these acidic vesicles are required to convert the hemoglobin into heme of hemoglobin into the hemozoin by the parasitic lysosomes. But as chloroquine raises the intravesicular pH because of their basic in nature, thus they interferes with the degradation of the hemoglobin by the parasitic lysosomes. So heme to hemozoin conversion is not possible when we have raised the vesicular pH by giving basic drug like chloroquine. And what is the net effect? So there is polymerization of the toxic heme to non-toxic parasite. Pigment hemozoin is inhibited by the formation of the chloroquine heme complex. So chloroquine is a basic drug. They are stored in the intraerythrocytic vesicle, and they raises the vesicular pH, and this prevents the degradation of the heme to hemozoin, and there is formation of the heme chloroquine complex, and this polymerization of the toxic heme to non-toxic parasite pigment hemozoin is inhibited by the formation of the chloroquine heme complex. So remember, heme is toxic for the parasite, so they want to convert heme into hemozoin for their survival. So as chloroquine is given, they form the they increase the vesicular pH, as well as they form the complex of the with the chloroquine. So chloroquine heme complex is prevents the heme to hemozoin conversion, and thus parasites do not survive because of the absence of the hemozoin. And heme itself, or its complex with the chloroquine, then damages the plasmodial membrane. So heme is toxic to the plasmodium, and as there is formation of the hemozoin from the heme, as well as heme plus heme chloroquine complex, that damages the plasmodial membrane. There is clumping of the pigment and changes in the parasite membrane follows that causes the death of the parasite. And other related antimalarials like amodiaquine, quinine, mefloquine, lumefantrine act in the analogous manner. So if question comes, mechanism of action of the drugs like chloroquine, quinine, primaquine, mechanism of action is actually same for all the drugs except artemisinin or some other antibiotics, which we know others, but mostly this chloroquine, quinine, primaquine, mefloquine, lumefantrine, they act in the analogous manner. That means they prevent the formation of the hemozoin from the heme, and they form a complex with the heme, that is heme chloroquine complex or heme quinine complex, heme mefloquine complex, which is toxic to the plasmodium, and that causes the disruption of the plasmodial membrane, and because of this they are stored of the basic drugs within the intervesicular store, and that raises the intervesicular pH, which prevents the formation of the heme to hemozoin. So this is the mechanism of action of the most of the commonly used antimalarial drugs. So how there is formation of resistance? There is reduced uptake and transport of the chloroquine to food vacuole of the plasmodium. So if there is reduced uptake and transport, then there is resistance. Pharmacokinetics, it can be given orally, and chloroquine, we know from the general pharmacology, it is having very wide volume of distribution. It is widely distributed and concentrated in the tissue, and because of their wide volume of distribution, we have to give chloroquine in loading dose. And they are distributed in the liver, spleen, kidney, lungs, skin, leukocytes, and also some other tissues like retina. Its selective accumulation in retina is responsible for the ocular toxicity seen with prolonged use. So prolonged use of chloroquine is not given. So when chloroquine have multiple uses, chloroquine in malaria, though it takes 3 days course, but in some cases it requires longer duration of course, and that causes the retinal damage because of they are stored in the retina. And to prevent that toxicity, chloroquine is not used. Hydroxychloroquine is used mostly in the treatment of the rheumatoid arthritis or other rheumatology conditions like systemic lupus erythematosus. We use hydroxychloroquine to prevent this retinal damage, because hydroxychloroquine is not so much stored in the retina. It is metabolized by the liver, excreted in the urine, and early plasma THF varies from the 3 to 10 days because of tight tissue binding. Small amounts persist in the body for the longer time. So chloroquine THF is long 3 to 10 days. Also volume distribution is high, that's why it needs to be given in loading dose. Adverse effects, mostly nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, and dosing after meals may reduce some adverse effects. But long-term administration can cause retinal damage. There is loss of vision, and corneal deposits may occur, which also affect the vision, but it is reversible. But retinal damage is, remember, retinal damage is irreversible. That's why if chloroquine is given for longer term therapy, we have to check the retina by the direct ophthalmoscopy repeatedly to see whether there is any change in the retina. If it is there, we have to stop it immediately because retinal damage is irreversible. And contraindications, what is the contraindication? Chloroquine can precipitate attacks of the seizure, psoriasis, or acute intermittent porphyria. That's why we have to take history whether the patient is already suffering from this, any epileptic disorders, any porphyria, or any psoriasis. We have to avoid the chloroquine in those patients. And in liver disease patient also, we have to avoid it. Also, patients are already having some retinal problems, hematological disease, we have to avoid it. But it is safe in pregnancy and for young children. So Chloroquine is safe in pregnancy, so treatment of vivax malaria in pregnancy and also as well as non-pregnancy states is same. So chloroquine 3-day course for vivax malaria is same for pregnant as well as non-pregnant adults. So what are the other actions? It can also kill the Entamoeba histolytica and giardial amblia. It can have some anti-inflammatory effect and it has some local anesthetic action. Also it has some antihistaminic and anti-aging property. So therapeutic use, chloroquine is the preferred drug for the clinical cure of the vivax, ovel and the plasmodium malaria. So remember, though some sensitive falciparum malaria still exist, but sensitive plasmodium falciparum is not so much prevalent in India. So that's why if we have detected the plasmodium as falciparum, then chloroquine should not be given. But for other plasmodium like malaria, ovel and vivax, chloroquine is the drug of choice, and it causes direct clearance of the fever and parasitemia. But remember, though chloroquine resistance vivax is also prevalent, but we should not jump to artemisinin group of drug from the very beginning, because that will invite resistance to the or increase the resistance to the artemisinin group of drug to vivax also, and then we have no option left to treat the vivax malaria. So chloroquine is the first drug. Artemisinin can be used, but should be used as reserve drug only when chloroquine fails to achieve the clinical cure in the vivax malaria. But for the falciparum malaria, start treatment with the artemisinin group of drug. Don't use chloroquine because chloroquine resistance is also already high, so chance of clinical cure by chloroquine against the falciparum is very low. So what are the therapeutic use? What are the therapeutic use of the chloroquine? This is very commonly asked question. So extraintestinal amoebiasis or hepatic amoebiasis or amoebic liver abscess. So chloroquine is stored in the liver and it has some effect on the Entamoeba histolytica also, which is forming liver abscess. And due to high liver concentration, it may be useful for amoebic abscess that fail initial therapy with metronidazole. So metronidazole is the drug of choice for the amoebic liver abscess. When there is inadequate clearance of the amoeba from the liver, then chloroquine can be given. Next, we can use the rheumatoid arthritis, but here we have to use longer term duration therapy, and that's why not chloroquine, actually hydroxychloroquine is used, which has lower chance of retinal damage. And what are the other uses? We can use this discoid leukoerythematosus, also mainly the skin manifestations of the systemic leukoerythematosus. We can use it in lepra reaction. Lepra reaction is reaction which is caused by the drugs in the leprosy patient. This is an inflammatory response actually, photogenic reactions and infectious mononucleosis. So these are the uses of the chloroquine. Primaquine, so mainly clinical cure of the vivax, clinical cure of the plasmodium malaria, clinical cure of the plasmodium ovel, as well as treatment of the rheumatoid arthritis, treatment of the amoebic liver abscess or extraintestinal amoebiasis, discoid leukoerythematosus, lepra reaction, infectious mononucleosis. And nowadays you can add, though evidence is not so much strong, there are some plus minus reports are coming, but we can add that it has been used widely to prevent the as prophylactic use for treatment of the COVID. That means SARS-CoV coronavirus 2. We can use hydroxychloroquine as prophylactic therapy, as well as curative therapy. It has been tried in some countries. So resistance to chloroquine is now very common among the strains of the Plasmodium falciparum and uncommon but increasing for the Plasmodium vivax. So falciparum is commonly resistant to the chloroquine, but vivax is not so much common, but it is now showing resistance in some area. So that's why where chloroquine resistance is there, we have to use ACT, that is mean artemisinin based combination therapy is now the first line treatment for the Plasmodium falciparum. So ACT, remember this term as short note, artemisinin based combination therapy, when we have to combine artemisinin group of drugs. That means one drug from the artesunate, artemether, arteether, plus we have to combine other drugs to ensure proper killing. We can combine mefloquine, we can combine lumefantrine, etc. with artemisinin group of drug to ensure proper killing of the falciparum. So what is the dose? Chloroquine phosphate, it is available in tablet form, 250 mg tablet, and in the 250 mg tablet, chloroquine base actually is 150 mg. So single tablet, chloroquine phosphate 250 mg, but in that 250 mg, chloroquine itself has the weight of 150 mg. And dose, you have to remember the dose. So because remember, for among the infectious disease, tuberculosis, leprosy, malaria, HIV, and entamoeba infection, so you have to remember the dose. Okay, and so chloroquine, what is the dose? 600 milligram base. So remember, one tablet of chloroquine phosphate contain 150 milligram chloroquine base. So here loading dose is given, I have mentioned, because of their wide volume distribution. That's why 600 milligram. That means 4 tablets initially should be given, followed by 6 to 8 hours after 300 milligram, then 300 milligram daily for 2 days. So what is the dose schedule? 4 tablets initially, chloroquine phosphate, 150 milligram base in each tablet. So 4 tablets initially. After that 6 hours we give 2 tablets, and after the second dose we give another 2 tablets after 24 hours, another 2 tablets for another 24 hours. That means total 10 tablets. That means total doses of chloroquine base is 1500 milligram, 1500. So 600 initially, suppose it is 0 hour, then 300 milligram after 6 hours, then 300 milligram after another 24 hours. That means at the 30 hours, and 300 milligram after another 24 hours. That means at the 54th hour. Okay, so 0, 6, 30, 54. This is the one schedule: 600, 300, 300, 300. Another schedule is present also, which is equally effective, and there we give chloroquine in 600 milligram initially at 0 hour. After that we wait another 24 hours to give 600 milligram another dose, 600, 600, 0 and 24 hours. Then next 300 tablet is given after another 24 hours. So at the 48th hour. So here the 2 dose schedule are there: 600, 300, 300, 300, where we give the dose at 0, 6, 30 and 54 hours respectively. Another schedule is there where we give 600, 600, 300, and we give the dose at 0, 24, 48 hours respectively. IM injection is not given. It has local tissue toxicity, and large intramuscular injections or rapid intravenous infusion can result in severe hypotension, arrhythmia and seizures. So not recommended. So it is given in always orally. So when to give which therapy? For easy to remember, I always tell the students that whichever is more convenient for the patient. So suppose chloroquine Plasmodium virus infection is detected at the night, 10 p.m. So start therapy then, and if we follow the first therapy, that means 0, 6, 30, 54 hours, then we have to give the dose, first dose at 10 p.m. but second dose at 4 a.m. and we have to continue the 4 a.m. dose for the next 2 days, next 3 days actually. So because 6, 30, 54 hours, that 3 days dose should be given at 4 a.m., which is not actually comfortable for the patient. We have to wake up the patient very early in the morning, so that's why it is not so much effective. That's why it is not so much comfortable. That's why we can use the second form regime. That means 10 p.m., 10 p.m., 10 p.m., 0, 24, 48 hours in subsequent 3 days to achieve the cure. And suppose patient is detected to have seizure, have plasmodium at the say 11 a.m. Okay, and then we can continue the we can give the first therapy. That means 11 a.m. means second dose should be given in 5 p.m. and the next second and third day also we can continue the 5 p.m. So according to the patient's convenience, we can select the therapy. So 0, 6, 30, 54 as well as 0, 24, 48. Both regimes are equally effective, and we can select the appropriate regime according to the patient's convenience. So we have discussed it. Amodiaquine, which is identical to chloroquine, and this is has safety effectivity against chloroquine resistance falciparum is there. Mechanism of resistance are almost similar to the chloroquine, but problem of the amodiaquine is can cause agranulocytosis and hepatotoxicity, have limited the use of the drug for prophylaxis, and the effect is not seen with the short-term therapy. Can be used for the clinical cure of falciparum malaria?
not used for the prophylaxis, preferred in the African countries. So amodiaquine, it is not so much commonly prescribed in India. It is preferred for the African countries, and it has combined formulation with artesunate, has been recently approved for the use in the uncomplicated falciparum malaria, irrespective of the chloroquine resistant status. So it can be combined with the artesunate. Artesunate amodiaquine combination can be given in the falciparum malaria. Next, primaquine. So primaquine, it is the 8-aminoquinolone. So primaquine, we have discussed it already. It has two unique properties. It can kill hypnozoites in vivax, as well as it can kill gametocytes for vivax as well as falciparum. It is poor erythrocytes zoonocytes. That means it has no role on the merozoites. So not useful for the acute attack. It cannot cure the fever, but it prevents the relapse as well as recrudescence. It prevents the relapse as well as prevent the transmission of the gametocyte from the infected person to the mosquito. It is highly effective against gametocytes and hypnozoites. Mechanism of action is almost same like chloroquine. That means it also forms the heme primaquine complex, prevents formation of the heme to hemojoin. So its primary indication is radical cure of the relapsing vivax malaria novel. So when there is chance of relapse, we have to use primaquine, and dose is 50 mg per day for 2 weeks. And chloroquine and other blood cyanocytes to eliminate the erythrocytic phase is used to kill to prevent the relapse. It is gametocytocidal for the all species of Plasmodium, cuts the transmission of the mosquito. So always remember, primaquine is essential for all the Plasmodium infection, either for gametocytocidal or for hypnocytocidal. But dose is different. For the hypnocytocidal, dose is 50 mg per day for 2 weeks, whereas for gametocytocidal, the dose is 45 mg single dose therapy on the day 2 of the treatment, second day of the treatment. Chloroquine sensitive falciparum malaria, we can use chloroquine plus primaquine. Single dose 45 mg dose is given there to kill the gametocytes, because 50 mg day 14 days dose is useful for the vivax malaria when there is we want to prevent the relapse. But in falciparum we have no role in the relapse prevention. We have to kill the gametocytes as early as possible. So that's why 45 mg single dose for falciparum malaria is we can use primaquine in that dose in the falciparum malaria. So adverse effects: nausea, headache, abdominal cramps, and for primaquine it can increase the oxidative damage of the RBC. That's why it can cause dose-related hemolysis, methemoglobinemia, and rarely it can cause tachypnea cyanosis due to oxygen property of the primaquine. And we have to screen whether patient is GHOSH deficiency or not. So patients with glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency are highly sensitive, and hemolytic anemia can occur even with 15-30 mg per day dose. That's why GHOSH deficiency should be ruled out before giving primaquine. And also you have to rule out pregnancy, because in pregnancy also primaquine is contraindicated. So primaquine, two uses are: one is hypnocytocidal, 50 mg per day for 14 days, and for gametocytocidal for the Plasmodium falciparum, 45 mg single dose on day 2. And we have to avoid in pregnancy, and we have to avoid in the GHOSH deficiency patient, because of there is development of the hemolysis and methemoglobinemia in those susceptible persons. Similar group of drug is tafenoquine. It is long-acting drug, and here a single dose anti-relapse drug for the vivax malaria also. So where primaquine needs to be given 14 days for prevention of the relapse, tafenoquine can be given single dose therapy because of its longer acting action. It also can act as erythrocytic zoonocyte. Mefloquine, we have discussed it in the treatment of prophylaxis of malaria, but it is also acts on the erythrocytic phase, can cure the fever. So it is chemically related to quinine. It is fast acting erythrocytic zoonocyte. Hepatic stage is not effective on the hepatic stage. That means extraerythrocytic phase or hypnogenic phase, it is not effective. Also, it is not effective on the gametocytes. So mechanism same as chloroquine, formation of the heme mefloquine complex, which is prevents formation of the hemozoin from the heme, and thus toxic heme or heme mefloquine complex is disrupting the plasmodial membrane. And as well as, so remember, chloroquine, quinine, mefloquine, primaquine, mechanism action is same for these drugs. All are basic drugs, and they raise the intravesicular pH of the plasmodium. They are active against the chloroquine sensitive as well as resistant Plasmodium vivax and falciparum. Mechanism is same as chloroquine, and dose is actually in children 50 milligram per kg, but remember in adult dose it is 250 milligram, and it is well absorbed orally. Absorption enhances by the food. It is not used parenterally, eliminated in the bile and urine. So therapeutic use, it is effective therapy for many chloroquine resistant strains of the Plasmodium falciparum. And remember, artemisinin group of drug, it is commonly combined with the mefloquine to achieve the cure in the Plasmodium falciparum. And it also can be used in chemoprophylactic drug for most malaria endemic regions with chloroquine resistant strains. So as mefloquine is effective in chloroquine resistant falciparum malaria also, so mefloquine is the drug of choice for the chemoprophylaxis of the malaria where there is widespread resistance to the chloroquine. Okay, so mefloquine is a very good drug which can be combined with artemisinin to achieve the clinical cure in the falciparum malaria. Also, to prevent the vivax as well as falciparum malaria when chloroquine resistance is prevalent, when we have to use mefloquine as chemoprophylactic drug. Dose, once again I am repeating, 250 milligram weekly, 2 weeks, started 2 weeks before journey and continued for the journey, and to be continued until 4 weeks after return. So it should be used in combination with the artesunate as well as ACT. That means one ACT is artesunate plus mefloquine, artemisinin combination therapy, and it should it prevents the mefloquine resistance. So mefloquine is not used alone because of development of resistance. So it should be combined with artesunate, and that forms one example of the ACT, artemisinin based combination therapy, artesunate plus mefloquine. And there we can use in uncomplicated falciparum malaria and also chloroquine resistance and chloroquine plus sulfadoxine pyrimethamine resistance cases. So when there is falciparum malaria or even in virus malaria also, when chloroquine is resistant, we can use mefloquine. 250 milligram weekly we have discussed in introduction. So remember, mefloquine given to the patients who have received mefloquine cause QT prolonging drug prolongation if we combine mefloquine with these drugs, halofentrin, quinidine or chloroquine also. So these drugs should not be administered if mefloquine has been given less than 12 hours earlier. So there is chance of QT prolongation with mefloquine, especially if we combine the drugs with other antimalarial drug like chloroquine, halofentrin, quinine. Piperaquine, which is not commonly used, but it is also chloroquine congener, and it is high efficacy hydroxyzondocyte, and not used alone. It should be used with the dihydroartemisinin, that is one group of artemisinin drug for the resistant falciparum malaria. And there is two combinations are available: dihydroartemisinin plus piperaquine and arterioline piperaquine as part of the ACT. So piperaquine not used alone, though it has a highly effective drug for the falciparum malaria, but in not only that, also in against the Plasmodium chloroquine resistant Plasmodium vivax malaria also, and it is a erythrocytic zoonocyte. Mechanism of action is same as chloroquine. Next, quinine. This is the oldest drug we have seen in many literature about the quinine, and the source is cinchona bark, and it is also erythrocytic zoonocyte for all the phases of Plasmodium. Pre-erythrocyte has no action. Gammacytocidal against the Plasmodium vivax Plasmodium malaria, plus primaquine for the vivax malaria. It should be not only, so remember, quinine is not used alone in the vivax malaria, falciparum malaria too. In the pre-erythrocyte stage, it has no action, so it has no effect on the hypnozoites. It has no effect on the erythrocyte. It has no effect on the prevention of the relapse. So quinine is given commonly in the Plasmodium falciparum infection. It has some gammacytocidal activity present in the vivax and malaria also, but that gammacytocidal action is not so much effective. That's why to have the gammacytocidal effect in the falciparum malaria, we have to combine quinine with primaquine, and it is less effective and more toxic than the chloroquine. So chloroquine preferred over quinine because of its, because quinine is more toxic, but often when there is resistance to all the drugs, chloroquine as well as resistance to artemisinin, we have to go to the last resort quinine. And quinine, its use was reduced because of development of the artemisinin based of therapy, but due to development of the artemisinin resistance also, quinine use has been researched. There is resurgence of the quinine use. So most chloroquine and multi-resistant strains of Plasmodium falciparum still respond to it. That means quinine resistance is still has not developed. That's why when all drug treatment fails, we have to go to we have to use the quinine. And that's why there is resurgence of quinine use, which was absent for last few years, because quinine, most of the drug, falciparum as well as Antimalarial, can be cured by the artemisinin group of drug, but sometimes they fail also. Then we have to use quinine. So though the quinine is effective in terminating the acute attack of falciparum malaria, it may not prevent the recrudescence. That's why, so recrudescence, once again I am repeating, that is ineffective or killing, or inadequate killing. That means virus parasite may be present in the circulation in undetectable level. That's why after a few days there is chance of development of the infection. That's why to ensure proper killing, quinine is also not used alone. Quinine is actually combined with either doxycycline, tetracycline, or with clindamycin to achieve the complete cure. So doxycycline, clindamycin is mostly added to it for the complete parasite clearance. Otherwise, there is recrudescence. So it may not prevent recrudescence, indicating incomplete clearance of the parasite. So quinine dose is 600 mg thrice daily for 7 days. Unlike chloroquine, chloroquine is completed therapy within 3 days, but quinine 600 mg thrice daily for 7 days. Here we use quinine sulfate tablets, and it should be combined with doxycycline, clindamycin, or doxycycline or clindamycin actually. So doxycycline dose is 100 mg once daily for 7 days, or we can combine clindamycin with quinine. Clindamycin dose is 600 mg twice daily for 7 days. So either doxycycline 100 mg once daily for 7 days, or clindamycin 600 mg twice daily for 7 days should be combined with quinine 600 mg thrice daily for 7 days. So this is the dose for the uncomplicated falciparum malaria for quinine based therapy. So quinine plus doxycycline or quinine plus clindamycin. So mostly quinine plus doxycycline is used, but in pregnancy and in children below 8 years of age, quinine plus clindamycin is used. Okay, so remember this quinine based combination therapy, and but of course we have to add primaquine to ensure gammacidal killing, and for that, as Plasmodium falciparum has no hypnogenetic phase, thus we have to kill the gammacyte only. That's why dose is 45 mg single dose on the second day of therapy. Quinine plus doxycycline or quinine plus clindamycin. Mechanism of action same as chloroquine. It is a weak base concentrated in the acidic food vacuoles, inhibits polymerization of the heme to hemozoin, and heme-quinine complex damages the parasite membrane and kills it. So after oral administration, quinine is rapidly absorbed, reaches peak plasma level in 1 to 3 hours, and it is widely distributed in the body tissue. And also, quinine is, because of highly toxic of quinine, it is not used as loading dose. So use of loading dose in severe malaria allows the achievement of the peak plasma level within a few hours, but that is not commonly practiced because of its toxicity. Quinine can act as a cardiodepressant, act as antiarrhythmic, but is very bitter. High dose can cause hypotension, hypoglycemia, and also arrhythmia, chance of arrhythmia. And quinine also can cause hemolysis in G6PD deficiency patients. Synchronism is the adverse effect of quinine when it occurs when plasma concentration is more than 30 to 60 micromole per liter. It can cause dizziness, tinnitus, visual disturbance. It can also cause blurred vision, night blindness, altered color vision, optic, and there is reduction of the visual field due to constriction of the retinal blood vessels and even blindness. So chloroquine and quinine both are having problem with the vision, and it can cause constriction of the retinal blood vessels and even blindness. So use should be as short as possible to prevent the development of the irreversible visual damage. It can cause also auditory disturbance. So not only visual, it can cause auditory disturbance also, tinnitus, deafness, and vertigo due to involvement of the eighth nerve, and auditory visual disturbance are possibly due to their direct neurotoxic effects. So quinine is directly neurotoxic. Also due to cardiotoxic, it can cause hypotension and arrhythmia, and visual auditory disturbance due to involvement of the eighth nerve. These are the common adverse effects of the quinine, and it is this complex of this conglomeration of the symptoms is called synchronism. Synchronism may be idiosyncratic. It may occur after single dose or usually that is usually mild type, but often it is dose dependent. It occur after single large oral dose. That's why it should be should not be given with loading dose. Despite that quinine has high volume distribution, and we cannot give it in loading dose because of its development of the synchronism. That means irreversible damage of the ocular or visual auditory adverse effects, hypotension, arrhythmia. So this dose dependent occur in after single large dose or fast IV administration, or even it can be caused by prolonged use of the therapeutic dose. So idiosyncratic, that means it has no relation with the dose, but it is usually mild type, but dose dependent synchronism that can cause severe damage. So quinine occasionally cause hemolysis, especially in the pregnant women and patients of falciparum malaria, resulting in hemoglobinuria. It is called black water fever, and that can cause kidney damage. So quinine often cause this black water fever in the patients of the falciparum malaria, and during pregnancy it should be used with the life-threatening only for the life-threatening infection with special care to prevent hypoglycemia. So quinine, it causes beta cell damage, and it can, that's why due to beta cell destruction there is release of insulin, and this insulin can cause hypoglycemia. That's why it should be given with caution in the pregnancy patient, because hypoglycemia is very much dangerous for the during the pregnancy. That's why quinine, even if it is given in pregnancy, we should be cautious, and we should supplement the glucose adequately to prevent the hypoglycemia. So therapeutic use, already we have discussed the dose. Quinine 600 mg thrice daily for 7 days, and we have to combine it either with doxycycline or clindamycin. Doxycycline dose is 100 mg daily, or clindamycin 600 mg BD for the 7 days. Clindamycin is only used in the pregnancy and children, whereas doxycycline is useful for all other patients, because doxycycline we cannot give it in the pregnancy and in children below 8 years of age. And so this is for the uncomplicated malaria, unchronic falciparum malaria. But in complicated malaria, we can use quinine in the IV dose. So in oral dose, quinine is used as quinine sulfate salt, but in IV dose, we use the quinine dihydrochloride salt. It has been used as the drug of choice for the cerebral malaria and other forms of complicated malaria. Complicated malaria means there are multiple symptoms. I shall discuss in the next class. So when patient is having some complications of malaria like renal failure, liver failure, severe anemia, acidosis, acute respiratory distress syndrome, there is hemoglobinuria, hyperparacetamia, etc. There, and patient is also not conscious, having convulsion, etc. So cerebral malaria as well as treatment of the complicated malaria, quinine is the drug of choice. 20 mg per kg loading dose, diluted in 5% dextrose. So 5% dextrose means to prevent the development of the hypoglycemia. It is infused over IV over 4 hours, and this should be continued given every 8 hours. So 20 mg per kg loading dose should be completed within 4 hours. After that, we give a gap of 4 hours, and then we continue 10 mg per kg dose for every 4 hours. Then every 4 hours means we have to so total, suppose we starting chloroquine quinine sulfate dose, quinine dihydrochloride infusion now at the 0 hour, and for the next 4 hours the dose is 20 mg per kg. After that there is a gap of 4 hours. For the next 4 hours we run 10 mg per kg, and then give 4 hour gap. Then continue that 10 mg per kg for 4 hours and give gap of 10 mg per kg for 4 hours. That means we give 3 doses actually for 4 hours each, 20 mg, 10 mg per kg, 10 mg per kg, and give 4 hours gap after each infusion. And this treatment should be continued until patient is stable, and when patient is stable we can give oral dose 10 mg per kg 8 hourly to complete a 7-day course. And though currently artemisinin compounds are preferred and should be used by parenteral route. So artemisinin can be used in treatment of the cerebral malaria as well as complicated malaria, but when artemisinin therapy also fails, then quinine is the last resort of drug, and that is very useful because quinine resistance is very, very rare. So today I stop here, discuss the few questions. I shall answer few questions which we have discussed in this class. Number 1, Uses of the primaquine. Number 1, uses of primaquine. Number 2, dose of primaquine in relapse, dose of primaquine in prevention of the gametocytal. Number 2, dose of primaquine in prevention of the killing of the gametocytes. So, second question is dose of primaquine in relapse prevention and dose of primaquine in the gametocytocidal activity. Number 3, mechanism of action of the chloroquine in short. Number 4, therapeutic uses of the chloroquine. Number 4, therapeutic uses of the chloroquine. Number 5, full form of ACT. Number 6, to prevent recrudescence. Quinine should be added to which drug? To prevent recrudescence, quinine should be added to which drug? Number 7, why chloroquine is not used in treatment of the rheumatoid arthritis. Number 7, why chloroquine is not preferred in treatment of the rheumatoid arthritis. Number 8, adverse effects of the quinine. Number 9, number 9, name the drug which can be used in treatment of the relapse as single dose therapy as compared to 14 days therapy of primaquine. So which can be given as a single dose therapy for prevention of relapse as compared to 14 days therapy of primaquine. Number 10, what is the drug of choice for the prophylaxis of malaria in India? What is the drug of choice for prophylaxis of malaria in India? So answer this question, and if there is any query, tell me, I shall discuss it.